In this lesson, we'll learn binary subtraction. Just like addition, computers can also subtract binary numbers, using only zeros and ones. Here, we subtract 0011 from 1010. And the answer is 0111. You'll also learn what the minuend, subtrahend, and difference mean. Let's get started. But why do computers need to subtract binary numbers? The answer is, they do it every day. When money is spent, a bank balance goes down. Timers count down, 1 second at a time. Scores can increase or decrease. And computers constantly track the remaining storage and memory. Even though computers understand only 0 and 1, they can perform all these calculations using binary subtraction. Now, let's learn how it works. Before learning binary subtraction, let's review decimal subtraction. Here, we subtract 18 from 52, and the answer is 34. Sometimes, the top digit is smaller than the bottom digit. For example, 2 minus 8. We cannot subtract directly, so we borrow from the next column. Binary subtraction works the same way, but because binary uses base 2, borrowing is slightly different. Let's see how binary borrowing works. Now, let's compare decimal borrowing and binary borrowing. In decimal, when we borrow 1, it becomes 10, because decimal uses base 10. In binary, when we borrow 1, it becomes 10 too, because binary uses base 2. Notice that the method is the same, but the value is different. Understanding this idea makes binary subtraction much easier. Next, let's learn the 4 rules of binary subtraction. Binary subtraction has only 4 simple rules. Rule 1, 0 minus 0 equals 0. Rule 2, 1 minus 0 equals 1. Rule 3, 1 minus 1 equals 0. Rule 4, 0 minus 1 cannot be done directly. In this case, we must borrow from the next column. Once you remember these 4 rules, solving binary subtraction becomes much easier. Let's begin with Rule 1, 0 minus 0 equals 0. Here, we subtract 0 from 0. Nothing changes, so the answer is still 0. This is the simplest rule, and no borrowing is needed. Remember, 0 minus 0 always equals 0. Now, let's look at Rule 2. 1 minus 0 equals 1. When we subtract 0 from 1, the value does not change. So, the answer remains 1. This rule is very simple, and no borrowing is needed. Remember, 1 minus 0 always equals 1. Next, let's learn Rule 3. 1 minus 1 equals 0. Here, we subtract 1 from 1, because both values are the same. They cancel each other out. So, the answer is 0. This rule is simple, and no borrowing is needed. Remember, 1 minus 1 always equals 0. Finally, let's learn Rule 4. 0 minus 1 cannot be done directly. So, we must borrow from the next column. The borrowed 1 becomes 10 in binary, or 10 2. Now, we subtract 10 2 minus 1 2, and the answer is 1. Remember, whenever you see 0 minus 1, always borrow first, then subtract. Now, let's see Rule 4 in action. We need to subtract 11 from 10. Starting from the right, we have 0 minus 1. We can't subtract directly, so we borrow 1 from the left column. The borrowed 1 becomes 10 2. Now, 10 2 minus 1 2 equals 1. Continue with the next column, and the final answer is 11 2. Remember, when the top bit is smaller, borrow first, then subtract. Now, let's solve a binary subtraction problem, step by step. We need to subtract 1010 from 1101. Start from the rightmost bit, and work to the left. When the top bit is smaller, borrow from the next column. The borrowed 1 becomes 10 2, then continue subtracting. Repeat the same process until every column is complete. The final answer is 0111. Always remember, borrow first, then subtract. Let's look at another example. With multiple borrowing, we need to subtract 00011 from 10,000. Start from the rightmost bit. Since 0 minus 1 cannot be done, we borrow from the nearest 1 on the left. The borrow passes through the 0 columns until it reaches the last bit. Continue subtracting, 1 column at a time. The final answer is 0101. This example shows that a borrow can travel through several columns before the subtraction is completed. Let's look at one more example of binary subtraction with borrowing. We need to subtract 10 million from 10 million. Start from the rightmost bit and move left. Whenever 0 minus 1 appears, borrow from the next column. Continue borrowing, and subtract each column, one step at a time. After completing every column, the final answer is 0,000,000,000. Remember, any binary number subtracted from itself is always 0. Here's our final example of binary subtraction with borrowing. We need to subtract 11,111,111 from 100 million. Start from the rightmost bit and move to the left. Since the top bit is smaller, we borrow again and again across several columns. Each borrowed one becomes 10(2) before we subtract. Continue the same process until every column is complete. The final answer is 0,000,000,001. This example shows that borrowing can continue through many columns until the subtraction is finished.